Hello, and welcome to Goodnight Channel. I'm PJ.
And I'm Jake, and together we're trying to complete the 52-game challenge. This week we're on game 18 of 52, The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past.
The Legend of Zelda, A Link to the Past, released in 1991. I can barely tell because the screen's a little bit too far away from my old man eyes.
Just make it bigger.
No. By Nintendo, EAD.
EAD, yeah.
What is that?
That's who developed it.
EAD? What does that mean?
Fuck.
Okay, don't worry about it.
I forgot. It's
Developed
been
by
so long
Nintendo,
since I wrote
that's all
note.
that matters. It is a prequel, according to the Hyrule Historia, which is an official source of Zelda information. It is a prequel to the original Legend of Zelda and Zelda 2, The Adventure of Link.
As well as a bunch of other games, but those
ones don't matter.
No. Those two are the most important because they preceded this game.
But this is the prequel to the preceding games.
Yes. It makes sense, right?
Yes, it does. It just sounds funny.
Talk
about your sequels because I know you're dying to.
Well, okay. So, I'm not, but okay. So there's two sequels to this game. There's a direct story sequel that takes place 6 years after this game with all the same characters, essentially, except you don't play Link anymore.
Oh, wait, was this the one that you download?
Yes, from the Stella View.
You had this up on the document, and I was like, what is this fucking thing that nobody cares about that you want to talk about?
Well, it's I think the Stella View was an interesting concept that just never got really used.
Yeah, you were talking. I remember you talking to me about this a long time ago.
Yeah, so they released a game called Legend of Zelda: The Ancient Stone Tablets for Stellaview, and you buy the game, I think, and you would download it daily. So every day you would play a little bit more of it, and that's how you got this game. It was like DLC before DLC. It's very strange, like episodic gaming almost. And it just takes place 6 years later, and you play yourself in that world. Very strange. But I think you meet up with all the same characters from A Link to the Past. Would you like to talk about the other sequel?
Yeah. They released another one in 2014, maybe? I think 2014. Called The Legend of Zelda: A Link Between Worlds for Nintendo 3DS. It is, as you put it, a world sequel. It's a story and world sequel, but it's the same world. It's just really none of the same characters. It takes place like 80 years after. There's an old man that might be Link, but other than that, there's really no connection.
Yeah.
Story-wise. There's a dark world, but it has nothing to do with that dark world.
Well, it seems like
it's like a different dark world, kind of. It's like a mirror world.
Yeah, it's really strange because we'll talk about it in the story a little bit, but there's the dark world, which is a malformed version of the Sacred Realm. So I'm wondering if, somewhere along the way there was another wish that created this other dark realm. Well, or dark world, I mean.
It seems like in A Link Between Worlds where it's like in A Link to the Past that's the Sacred Realms versus A Link Between Worlds, which is it's literally that place just in dark version. I don't know, and it doesn't matter because it's a Zelda game.
Yeah, nothing matters.
Yeah, exactly. Tell me about your story.
So the game is about this wizard, Agnum. He usurps the king and captures the 7 maidens of the 7 sages.
Of which Zelda is one.
Yeah, Zelda is...
So it's Zelda and the 6 maidens of the 7 sages.
Sure. Yeah, I guess that makes more sense. And
stupid.
This wizard, Agnum, is trying to free Ganon by using their power because the 7 sages locked away Ganon, so he's going to use the power of their descendants to release Ganon, who's been trapped in the Dark World, which he created when he traveled to the Sacred Realm and made a wish and created the Dark World.
Right.
So Link has a telepathic message broadcasted to him by Zelda, who says, "Link," or uncle of Link, "help me." And so his uncle sets out.
Oddly.
Presumably dies, though shows up in the end credits.
And they're just like, he's better.
Yeah.
I think it just says, your uncle's better.
Yeah.
And he's just there, and he's like, hey. And I'm like, hey.
And then you go out and you You go to the castle, you save the princess, and then you begin this journey across Hyrule to save the other maidens.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's essentially the story. You want to talk about gameplay?
Sure. It is if you've played A Link Between Worlds, Zelda 1, any of the 2D Zelda games, they all play exactly the same.
The Game Boy ones.
The Game Boy ones, the Capcom ones,
Yep.
Minish Cap, even a little bit the Wind Waker sequels, a tiny bit.
Spirit Tracks and Ocean 1. Spirit Ocean.
Oh, Spirit, Phantom Ocean and Spirit Train.
Phantom Blood.
Phantom Blood.
Anyway.
Phantom Pain. So it's a top-down... I don't know why RPG is first on your notes, because it's definitely not an RPG. Top-down action RPG. Wow. Very, very light on the RPG
I think I meant to write action RPG.
Okay.
I wrote it when I was at work, so it's in a bit of a hurry. And type it on my phone.
Real professional.
Well, we got stuff going on there, and that's what I did. That was free time. That was my lunch break.
Aww, so dedicated. So yeah, it's very, very. It's an action RPG for sure, but it's very light on the RPG elements. Like things, like you can level up your sword, but it has nothing to do with like experience points. You just got to find the things. Like probably the most RPG-ish thing is a magic meter, and even that feels more arcadey than it does RPG.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's top down. You swing your sword. You use a bunch of items, and you traverse dungeons and you fight bosses that clutter up the screen, and the SNES can't handle it, and then it chugs to a fucking halt.
Yeah, but that's a problem with a lot of SNES games. If you've ever played a Zelda game, though, it's essentially the same. Any of them.
A 2D Zelda game.
Well, even 3D, you have the idea of the mechanics and what you're going to get in, like world and different things like that. You're going to have item screens. You're going to have to save your game a bunch. It's all the same. All of them feel there's a distinct like feeling to them that feel very Zelda.
After having played, I guess we're gonna skip right into the notes section. What was your first Zelda game?
A Legend of Zelda: Link to the Past.
Okay, and mine was Ocarina of Time because I'm a baby, only 12 years old. So I was born right when it came out, 1999, probably.
Okay.
Anyway, so I would beg, having played and generally preferring 3D Zelda games, I would say that the 2D Zelda games play... I feel like it's a common misconception that they play the same, whereas they really don't. Like, you go into... Especially dungeon design. Like, dungeon design is totally different.
Yeah.
There is much more combat, just pure combat in 2D Zelda games, whereas it feels like there's a lot more like puzzles and like puzzle combat in the 3D ones. They're vaguely the same, and they capture some of that same spirit, like you said, but like you can't go in thinking that it's going to play the same, because it definitely doesn't. Mm-hmm. Like the dungeons don't have that. They feel like a little bit more of a classic game than that Zelda feel that I think people look for in the 3D ones. Like, I think that's what a lot of people complain about. Like, hey, this one's not... These dungeons just don't feel like dungeons. They don't feel like how I see as dungeons, and that's because they played 3D Zelda games first, whereas those ones are all, like, really, really heavily themed. Like, the ice dungeon in this one is a big tower that its main mechanic is falling through things, whereas, like... If that were in a 3D Zelda game, it'd be like slip sliding on the floor or something to do with fire and ice. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Okay.
I understand what you're saying. Yeah.
That's all I got. But that does bring up a good point in that Jake started with 2D Zelda games. I started with 3D Zelda games, which is going to color our point of view, I think.
I very much so. So, what would be your favorite Zelda game in the series?
Favorite? Not what I consider best.
No, I don't care what you think is best.
Okay. My favorite Zelda game and my favorite game of all time is Majora's Mask.
Okay. I think my favorite one is actually Link Between Worlds. I just like shitting on you constantly, but no.
It's really good.
It is really good, and it's the last one I've played where I actually wanted to complete it, like a Zelda game, like a newer Zelda game at least. That's like, oh, everything about this feels right for once, and all the mechanics come together. I mean, I keep wanting to go back and playing it, and I just haven't. It makes me sad. But
I went through twice. Once with 3 heart hero mode.
Yeah, I played with it for a minute, and then I kept getting invaded, Dark Souls style.
Okay. Anyway, the reason we bring up that is because, like I said, I guess before, like, I think it's really, really important when you talk about 2D, 3D Zelda games. It's just Zelda games in general. Like, there's such a huge divide in the like fandom, I'm gonna call it.
Yeah.
Of people who like X game versus Y game. Like, it's just important to kind of know what we think about the other Zelda games, because it's really, really subjective.
Until Link Between Worlds, Link to the Past was my favorite, but Between Worlds just was able to defeat my nostalgia in a unique way. Mainly just having the same world, but expanding it in all the right ways. It was like, oh, wow, like, I didn't think that game could be better. And then when you go back and you play this, and you go, yeah, there's flaws with it, but I still really prefer this game. Like, if I had to make a list of top 2 Zelda games, it would be Link Between Worlds and then Link to the Past. Top 2. That's it.
2.
There's no more Zelda games that matter to me.
Okay, so your first game was A Link to the Past. What are the positives of A Link to the Past?
Positives for Link to the Past is its music, top notch. I think it's some of my favorite music in the entire series. It's really hard to say gameplay. It used to be really good to me, but replaying it recently, it's like, it does get tedious after a while and kind of boring.
It doesn't work half the time.
It works for me. I just feel like it's just kind of.
I just always you can just, like, you can see the square hitboxes on round things. Like, it's just one of those.
Yeah.
It's a product of its time. I'm not ever gonna say. You're going to hear me shit on it a lot in a little bit here, and this is the first time I've ever played it, and the reason why it can be on this list is because I've never beaten it, let alone played it.
Yeah.
But I've played the other Capcom ones, the 2 Game Boy Color ones. I've played a little bit of Link's Awakening, and I played and beat A Link Between Worlds. I beat the Capcom ones as well. And so I've just never played A Link to the Past, and so this was my first time through, and I want to preface everything that I say with, I like the game.
Yeah.
I like it. I'm not in love with it.
No.
I like it.
Not like I am.
No, not at all. But I mean, I like it. I'd rather play A Link to the Past than a lot of other games.
Yeah. I just think this game has a unique charm to it.
Yeah.
And again, I'm tainted by nostalgia for the most part. And I think that's what drives me towards Link Between Worlds is the nostalgia. Like, it's really like an updated version of the game almost to me.
Well, because it kind of is.
Yeah, and that's the only thing it gets, like, brownie points it gets is, hey, I get to play the game I love again.
Yeah.
But a little bit better.
So my positives are, I like the overall world design. Like, especially, I don't know, it's kind of, like, if you go back and look at Legend of Zelda, the first one, and it's kind of like the world kind of all looks the same, and it's just kind of like,
I feel like that it only looks the same because of graphics. Like, it couldn't.
Yeah, but that's fine. It still looks the same. Doesn't matter if it's graphics or not. Like, you still.
But there's if you have the imagination, though, you can see that there's distinct areas. It's just tougher from a modern perspective.
I don't think so. There's only so much imagination that you can place onto, and yeah, that's fine. Like, you can't tell me that is okay, and then tell me that, like, other games that, like, handle at 20 frames per second on, like, an Xbox 360 is bad. Like, it's kind of like the same thing. It's like, yeah, well, it just can't handle it. Like, it's just it's not the game's fault. Like, yeah, it kind of is.
But I think that's different. Like, here the game is fundamentally sound, but and like an Xbox game you expect to look better and play better than a NES game that at its time, like, you see, like, the forest and you go, oh yeah, it's a forest. Like, it's like every generation, like when you play, like, an N64 game, you're like, this is the best graphics are ever gonna be. Like, it's like that feeling. Like,
we're getting really off topic.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Okay, point is, it's a big upgrade. Keep in mind that basically Zelda 1 and A Link to the Past. A Link to the Past is the sequel to Zelda 1.
Yeah.
You might as well ignore Zelda 2. Like, yes, it plays kind of like a Zelda game, sort of. But it's always been the black sheep, and these games are pretty much exactly the same.
Yeah.
A Legend of Zelda and A Legend of Zelda: A Link to the Past. So what's really nice about the world is that suddenly every single area feels
unique.
It has its own art style, has its own, not really music. It depends. Some areas have their own music. But everything feels like its own little thing. Like the Lost Worlds or the Lost Woods have its own music, and it feels like its own thing. And not only do all 9+ areas have their own feel, all 18+ areas have their own feel, because they have their own feel in the Dark World as well, which is pretty cool.
It's really cool because things change in this game, and it feels like things are changing throughout. Like you are making a difference in the world as you go through. Like the example would be like the Lost Woods. It starts out foggy, and once you get the Master Sword, the fog is lifted. Like there's a lot of really cool things like that happen.
I don't know about that. Like I always, after every temple I completed, I was like, all right, everything's still shit, I guess.
But like you drain the water temple,
and if you walk
off
one
screen,
square off and you come back, it's
but
reset.
It had to reset in case you fucked up.
It's just like, I don't think anything really changes in the game. Like, there's a lot of cool aspects. I don't think that's one of them. I really, really like finding non-mandatory secrets in the game. I really hate finding mandatory ones.
What's a mandatory secret?
The 2 medallions. I don't like things that are hidden in the overworld that are mandatory.
But you can see them.
What do you mean I can see them?
You can see the tombstone, the 2 tombstones.
How do I see them? I have to walk to that screen and know that it's there in advance.
There's a path to get to it. It's not like it's a secret path.
Okay. Does the game ever go, all right, go get the medallion?
Yeah, there's a guy who goes, hey, go get that medallion.
No. Does the game ever tell you? I don't want to go back to that old guy every fucking time.
Well, he's part of the game, so yes.
Okay, well, that's fucking stupid.
And you don't
Nobody
go to
wants
him,
to...
a different person tells you.
All right, well, who? Because I never talked to them.
I don't remember, but I definitely talked to him.
So just a random... Okay, regardless. I don't like anything that it's like, okay, you have to go get this thing mandatory to progress. I don't know. I really like the medallions. I just wish that those 2 medallions weren't mandatory. Like, they're cool upgrades that I feel like I found and, like, had fun with.
That's the one on the top of the mountain? Or the one in the desert?
There's 2.
There's 3.
I know that there's 3. 2
but
of them are mandatory.
Which 2 did you get?
Mountain, the 2 that I needed.
Yeah.
Mountain, and the one where you have to throw a thing into a fish thing.
Yeah.
And he gives you a medallion. Like, what the fuck? Like, that would have been really cool to find out and be like, oh, cool, I have this fucking cool medallion now. Like, the mountain one I don't mind because it's like right on the path and right next to an area that's obviously important. Like, I guess I should back up. I really only dislike the Quake medallion and where it's located, because the Quake medallion is located in an unmarked spot. I mean, it's got little square stones around it, but you don't know you can throw stuff in.
But I think that if you have been playing to that point, you already have the flippers, so you know that there should probably be something up there. Because that's where the flippers are.
Yeah, but by that time, you're so past the flippers. By the time you need the Quake medallion, you're so far past Zora River that it's just like, what's the fucking point in having you go into... Is it the Dark World version, too?
It's only the Dark World version that has it.
Yeah, okay.
So Light World has the flippers. The Zora domain.
I don't fucking know. Regardless, I don't know. It just depends. Like, and I don't like the magic meter. I fucking hate that that's so hidden.
What do you mean?
The magic meter is... you know what? I'm still in positives. Let me be positive for a second.
All right.
Let's not get too into it. I really, really, really like finding the non-mandatory upgrades and secrets and stuff like that. Like, finding the fairy places where you can upgrade your items. Like, you don't need the upgraded hook shot the upgraded boomerang or anything. Although you do need the upgraded bow,
yeah. But that one is...
It's pretty obvious, I guess. I don't know. What would you do without it?
Fail.
Okay.
I don't know what happened.
I hate that boss fight enough as is, so... I really like finding the couple non-mandatory upgrade items. They're just kind of scattered throughout the world, and it feels really natural to find them and do them. I like the side quests. I like finding heart pieces. There was a certain point in the game where I was just like, I'm not finding any more heart pieces. Like, I'm done. But finding the ones that I found, which were all but 8 of them, or all but 7 of them actually, were really fun. Mm-hmm. I like finding them. I like talking to the people. I like doing the little games and stuff. Like, that's all cool. I like that. I like art design in it. It looks really pretty.
Yeah, it feels very like Super Mario World art style-y.
Well, it feels a little bit darker than that. Like,
well, yeah, but
cool.
like that colorful palette to it.
Yeah.
Versus the later games that are very dark, except for like Wind Waker.
Yeah, well, and Ocarina is pretty bright.
It still feels
really
pretty
just
dark.
Twilight Princess.
Well, I think Majora's Mask and Ocarina both kind of feel darker and palette than.
I think Majora's Mask has a bright palette.
Well,
it's all like purples. It's just darker colors, but like it doesn't like it's bright. It's like toxic greens. Purples,
but it's still like
that.
A very muted
sick, nasty
colors versus these very bright popping colors that this game has.
I guess.
Like even its Dark World is very like vibrant.
Yeah. And the music's good. You know how I feel about the music. I don't think it's as good as the 3D ones, but that's I literally can't tell if that's because I'm biased or not.
It's because you are biased.
What do you think are the weaknesses of A Link to the Past? There are none.
No, there's surely there's a lot of like items I feel that are just pointless in this game.
Boomerang.
The boomerang doesn't really do much. It freezes them for a second, but like when you hit an enemy, they freeze.
You might as well just arrow them at that point.
Yeah, like it's got about the same hitbox, but you can throw it diagonally, I think, which I find weird. It's like one of the only items that's diagonally directionable.
Weird.
Yeah. And then it's kind of useful to hit those switches that switch blocks back and forth.
I've never used it for that.
That's the only reason I used it.
Actually stopped using it at a certain point.
Because I think it flies over those blocks. That's why I used it. I'm trying to think what else is bad. There's just those items, like the cape ends up being pretty much useless. You don't
need the cape, though.
That's what I'm saying. Like
I like the cape because you don't need it. I also like the ice rod because you don't need it.
Yeah, well, you do need it for that one boss fight.
You need it?
I don't know how you would defeat him without it. To hit the red one.
Oh. Wow, that's fucking annoying.
Unless maybe on a medallion might work, but I don't know.
Oh. That's fucking horrible. That's horrible.
That's why he tells you to go get it right away.
Who is he?
Sharashaska.
He tells you to go get the ice rod?
Right after you get done with the first temple, he goes,
I guess it's your fault if you don't get it at that point. I didn't remember.
Here's the boot, go get the ice rod. And you're like, okay. I mean, he doesn't say ice rod, but he's like, there's a treasure, and you go and you get it. Okay. It's when you go around the lake.
Okay.
Yeah.
As long as like a prominent figure that you have to talk to.
I mean, you
at
have
least
to talk
mentions it. Like then I'm fine with it. I was gonna say like
he doesn't mark it on your map. He just says it's on the other side of Lake Hyalea.
As long as like I said, as long as it's like if you're gonna be mandatory, you better at least that would feel like I guess my fault. Although it does seem kind of weird that it only comes into effect at the last boss.
Yeah.
Of the temples.
But then it's like your fault for not getting it, or not adventuring to find it over there.
I guess it's just kind of weird.
It's like a part of the map that you feel like you should explore because it's just like what's over here.
Yeah.
What was I going to say otherwise? Oh, I feel like there's a couple mid game dungeons that are kind of like they're not as good for some reason. Like I'm trying to remember which one I really got bored in. It's so boring I don't even remember it. But they do feel like a slog towards middle of the game.
Towards the end of the game, where they're just fucking horrible.
Yeah.
The 7th dungeon is the biggest piece of shit.
Is that the one with the pipes?
Yes, it's the one with the pipes.
That one doesn't bother me because it's a fast one. You go through it pretty quick. But I knew it. Like, I know that one.
Yeah, you know all of that.
Yeah. I think it's the one with the maiden.
I thought the maiden one was cool, I guess. They're all pretty fast.
What's the one with the mummies? The forest one. That one's
the forest one, which starts really cool, and then it just becomes horrible.
You have to. It's a lot of backtracking, and
I don't mind any of that. I like the backtracking. I don't like the mummies, and I don't like the over reliance on the fire rod.
Yeah,
all the magic items in this game are fucking broken. I think. I think that's probably my biggest complaint. Actually,
is the magic items.
Yeah, it's just how the magic works in this game. Everything else is nitpicky, kind of in my mind. Well, there are two things that I really dislike, but the biggest thing that I actually dislike and almost makes it feel not unplayable, but like I my want to finish the game really started to wane is the magic bar just because it's the only way to restore your magic is magic potion, which is fine. I think that's cool. Like, yeah, pay and I mean, you can pick up little magic jars and stuff like that.
But they never drop when you need them.
They never drop when you need them, and a lot of the times the enemies that drop them, you have to use magic items on in the first place. It's fucking bizarre as hell. And if you're in a room that requires magic and you're just kind of fucked, like,
yeah,
you're just like, oh,
magic mirror out of this dungeon and get some.
Yeah, I don't know what else you would do, like. But then you have to go find a potion person. There's a whole lot of shit that you have to do just to get this. And this is coming from me who got the the magic bar upgrade, which might as well be mandatory because it felt fucking annoying with that.
Yeah.
And so the magic upgrade is all items use half the magic they normally would. If the items that I had used full magic, I would have fucking lost my mind. Like, it's not that it's hard. It's just that it's annoying. Like, it's not fun to have to be like, all right, well, let me go backtrack through and try to find, like, it's not the same with hearts. Hearts are my fault. I guess to a lesser extent, magic is also my fault, but it's like,
would it be better if there was a second magic upgrade? Like if it went from 1/2 to 1/4?
No. I don't think that would solve it. I think what needs to solve it is the one thing that drops pretty consistently in every single dungeon at some point, and that a lot of people go into dungeons with, are fairies.
Yeah.
Now, fairies in this game, unlike, I believe, the 3D Zeldas, I kind of forget now that I think about it, though.
I don't think they do magic either.
But they don't really, I don't know, it never feels like magic really matters in 3D Zelda games.
Yeah.
It's pretty much Lens of Truth and, like, the various arrows, but the magic, like, you can crush pots. Oh, that's probably the biggest problem is, like, the stuff in the pots doesn't reset.
Yeah.
Which isn't a problem. I actually like it. I really, really like that the dungeons feel a lot harder, and you have to, like, you get into these little rooms, and you're like, oh, there's only a couple pots here. It actually feels like a reward. Like, oh, there's a couple pots here, and I haven't gone through them yet. Like, yeah. I can maybe get some arrows and some hearts. Like, that's awesome. Like, those little tiny rewards feel much bigger in this game than they do in any of the Zelda or any of the 3D Zelda games. But if you use them out of the bottle, like, they work like in the 3D ones where if you die and you have a fairy in a bottle, it'll revive you and give you some hearts. I wish that they also gave you magic if you don't die. Like, if you die and you use a fairy, I understand, like, that's your punishment. Like, you get a get out of jail free card, but you don't get any magic back.
Yeah, maybe the way it should work is you get more hearts on death, and then if you use one, you get not as many hearts, but you also get magic.
Yeah,
as a alternative.
Or magic is the only thing that respawns in the pots. I'd be okay with that too. Yeah. Like, enemies, I don't know. I really don't know. I don't know how to fix it, and I don't know how it got so weird, like the way that it is, but you just run out of magic sometimes, and you're just like, fuck, there's no other way for me to get magic back other than grind for magic jars, which never feels good.
Is it RNG maybe that's causing that? Like, it's just not good, like, RNG to get those bottles? Like, I feel like there's, like, I remember playing before, and it's like, oh, I never had a problem with magic, and then this time I was like, I'm just not getting magic on this one dungeon.
Yeah,
like, there was like there was one main dungeon. I was like, man, I had to leave and get magic. It was the only time it happened to me. I was like,
or you just don't notice when you're a kid. Like, you don't remember the part where you spent like 3 hours getting magic potions.
But like, I think like as a kid, like I was like, oh, I'll just go get magic. Like, it wasn't like a chore to me.
Yeah,
like, it's just like, oh, I didn't bring magic with me. I should have put it in a bottle and had it. So
and that there is something to be said with it. Might be my fault as well. Like, maybe I should be going into dungeons with fairy, green potion and blue potion.
Yeah,
like,
and you were also short a bottle, which I think would have helped just a little bit.
I didn't
like,
find it.
It was really easy to find.
It doesn't matter. I don't care. I didn't find it.
Yeah,
I mean, like, it's not mandatory.
Yeah,
I should be able to play the game.
Mm-hmm. Well, none of the bottles are mandatory. I don't think you get any.
Which would be totally fucked, but I mean, you should be expected to get at least 2.
But that's like hard mode. Like, if you want to play hero mode, it's no bottle mode.
I guess. I don't know. I that and the one thing that's always turned me off of 2D Zelda games, which is how the sword works and how your movement works. Like, you don't face in 8 directions.
Yeah.
You only face in 4 directions at all times. Enemies can hit you in every direction. It doesn't fucking matter. Like, they can be on any single point and be able to hit you.
Mm-hmm.
But you can only hit them on 4 directions. Except, I guess, maybe with the boomerang, which goes 8 directions.
Yeah.
But, like, the sword just doesn't feel good. Like, Link's movement just doesn't feel good because of it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, half the time. Something that's remedied in A Link Between Worlds. And the bosses are boring, I think.
I think they get kind of boring because they don't have really any gimmicks to them towards the end. Like, they're just kind of like hit them a bunch and they die. Like, they're not really interesting for some reason. And one almost feels recycled. The eyeball.
The eyeball was so easy. I was confused. I even forgot. I had notes and I forgot to write them down. Just because, like, you just stand in one spot and you just spam the attack button and then he dies.
There are some weird bosses.
I would say at least half the bosses are mediocre to bad.
But are those bosses, the super easy ones, are they on dungeons that are really complicated? I mean, it's just like your reward for making it through an awful dungeon.
I don't think so.
How? What's the mummy boss?
The mummy boss is the fucking most annoying piece of shit. It's that moth.
Oh,
the moth,
yeah.
There is a dungeon, the Lost Worlds dungeon, or the Lost Woods, dungeon, which I actually really enjoy until the very last, like, 3 rooms, which are all horrible. Because you need magic to kill the mummies, you need magic, which do a fuck ton of damage.
Yes.
So you need magic to kill the mummies, to light the torches, to do the next 2 rooms, and then to kill the boss in any sane amount of time. So you show up in this boss room. There's 4 conveyor belts, which already the game hates conveyor belts, it seems. Like, Link just does not work correctly on the conveyor belts. Like, I had such a hard time going through doorways on anything that altered my movement. Like, you watch me try to get into doorways with ice. Like, it was stupid.
You would have to run.
Yeah.
Pegasus boots to get through.
Well, because it was the only way to keep it straight.
Yeah.
So you land, and now you're in a room of 4 conveyor belts that constantly take you around, a gigantic moth, and there's just spikes all the way around that are moving towards the center at all times.
Yeah.
So the Super Nintendo literally takes a shit at this point. Like, the game is running now at 10 frames per second, and it's so difficult because everything you do is super delayed, and you just die unless you have enough magic for the fire rod, and then it's slightly easier.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of. Actually, I thought he was way easier when I actually sat there and used the fire rod. His hitbox is also really weird. It's like kind of behind him.
Yeah.
But he's flying, so I didn't even know I could hit him. I thought I was waiting for him to land or something. Very strange.
Yeah. I don't like him.
Yeah, and getting to that boss room is horrible. Getting to the water temple boss room is fucking horrible. Because there's a part where you have to jump into the water, which means you can't attack. And there's a bunch of enemies in the water. So you just always get hit.
I feel like that water has a current, too.
It does have a current as well.
Yeah.
It's fucking horrible.
But that one doesn't bother me because I know what I'm doing there. Because that was one of those dungeons I just ran through really fast.
I have other things if you want to keep hearing me complain.
Sure, you can complain all you want. It seems to be therapy for...
It kind of is.
Get it all off your chest.
I dislike how poorly the game communicates its dungeon mechanics sometimes. I really, really wish there was an indication as to what blocks can be moved. Just something, just a little hint. Or an item that I can use that tells me what blocks can be moved. That I have to be in charge of using in the rooms. Like, I'm okay with that, too.
I feel like that there isn't that many blocks that need to be moved.
There are a shit zillion blocks that blocks just move randomly, and that, like, it's not like here's a switch and the switch you can't stand on it. Like, okay, here would be an example. You know that they have the switches that are on the ground.
The buttons, yeah.
The buttons. And some of them you hit and they're permanently on, and some of them the second you step off, the door closes or whatever goes away. If there's a block nearby, I'll move the block onto. Like, that's a nice hint that one of these blocks moves and I can move the block onto that.
I feel like you never put a block on one of those unless you have the rod.
I know. It's stupid.
Those are only statues.
You do put statues on them, yes, but something like that would give me an indication. Now, what happens all the fucking time in this game is move a block, a random block, move a block, door opens.
Yeah.
With no fucking indication as to why or which block. I just have to push all the blocks. And guess what? That's not engaging. That's not fun. I don't feel like I'm on an adventure. I feel like I'm Block Manager 2015. Like, I'm just pushing all the blocks. That's not a puzzle. I'm just brute forcing my way through everything.
It's a secret.
It's not even a secret. I have to progress.
Yeah. It's a secret key door.
Ugh. I really dislike that. I would be more than fine with it if
I feel like that's the same as like having to kill a room of enemies to get a key.
but that's different. Like okay, there's nothing in here. I'm gonna you naturally kill enemies too.
Yeah.
Like I'm okay with those. It's still kind of like I wish there was some kind of indication, but it's okay that there's not. Like there's nothing else to do in this room, and especially if I could do something that let me see if there were any blocks that I could push. Like there's no blocks to push. Let me kill all the enemies in the room. I see what that gets me.
I think I'd still prefer that over even one single room where you have to wait for all those tiles to break before a door opens. I think there's one room that does that.
Oh, they're horrible. They're horrible.
It's just so terrible.
And I don't know why.
I
It's just like I get bored halfway through and I get hit every time.
Yeah, I just can't keep up at some point. Like I start out fine, then all of a sudden like it starts to do them just a little bit faster, and I can't keep up, and they just beat the shit out of me, and they do so much damage.
And they're just boring. I hate those dumb tiles.
And I think they're gonna stop, and they don't. And I'm like, man, I really can't remember how many there are at any of these rooms. There's so many.
And I believe there's rooms in A Link Between Worlds that are like that, and they're so easy because you just point in the direction of the fucking tiles. You can't do that in this game. You have to position yourself so your sword comes out the right way. It's very weird. I just wish there was an indication. The other thing is floors. The floors that you can fall through, I thought all of them you could see like there was a little pattern on the bottom. And I was like, oh, what a great way to indicate that, you can fall through this floor and you'll end up in another area. But sometimes they're not.
Yeah.
Sometimes they're not marked.
Well, sometimes there's bomb cracks that don't work.
I don't think
there's any.
That's
there's
whatever.
no floors that aren't marked. They're all marked.
Yeah, no, they're not. I'm not talking about bombs. I'm talking about the floors that you can fall through and go onto a lower part of the dungeon. There are ones that are just black.
Yeah.
And it's just like, why? I would be perfectly fine if they were all marked, but like every once in a while there's one that's not, and I'm like, how am I supposed to fucking know that I can fall through here? Like you constantly teach me one thing. Don't go to the ones that are black. They'll kill you. And then you immediately do something else that's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a bunch of like little tiny things in this game, and those are all nitpicks. Like you can get through the game fine.
Yeah, because I don't remember any black ones on my playthrough.
I remembered it later on in the game, like near the end there in dungeon like 6 and 7, but I don't remember specifically when, and I could be wrong, but because I had notes here that were like, oh, it's really cool that it does this, and then all of a sudden I felt that was different. So
yeah,
maybe I'm crazy.
I'll have to look. I have all my footage because I recorded it. I'll see if I did that in one of those dungeons. I just don't remember falling into a black pit unless it was by accident and going, oh shit, I ended up in a secret room because I fucked up.
I don't know.
I'll have to look.
I don't know. There's just some things that feel obtuse for no real reason. Like they just don't fit in a in this kind of like Zelda game.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess at the same time they fit at the time.
Yeah.
It's just in retrospect they don't feel like they fit. Because like the obtuseness is Zelda 1, but I don't think Zelda 1's a particularly. I mean, it's good, I guess. It's a product of its time. Same with this. Like, I just don't think it's held up as well as people think. Versus Ocarina, which is still playable.
I think this is equally as playable.
I don't know. I disagree with that. I think it's not as equally playable only because, like, bosses aren't fun. There's no cool boss music. There's no, like, moments that are, like, noteworthy in my head. Like, off the top of my head, the Ganon fight's fucking horrible.
Yeah.
You can tell that it's fucking horrible because the designers just... They put him in that fucking pyramid just so you can walk directly back into him. Like, It's just... His entire fight is just an RNG fest of don't get stunned while he uses the fire and also don't accidentally get hit off. Or you'll have to just do the entire fight over.
I feel like that could be said about a couple of different games, though. Like, the ending of Dragon's Dogma, you have to run through until you get to him, and then you just have to, like, figure out, you can jump on his body and just hit him in his chest until he dies. Like,
it's a giant glowing weak point in that game.
Yeah, but like
it's not
as many times as I jumped on him, I could never get on his chest until like
but you knew what to do.
The third or fourth fight with him.
And also, it's like I don't know. There's something like I don't understand why I need to light these. I get that thematically why I need to light the 2 candles or the 2 torches in the room. I just hate that they place them directly onto the edge.
Yeah.
Like, don't fuck with me like that. Like, put them in the middle of the room. Don't put them on the edge. where your fucking RNG Ganon piece of shit will just randomly hit me off.
Yeah.
Like, it's horrible. I hate that shit. And, like, Link just doesn't control nearly as tightly to be able to ask those tasks of me and not have me be annoyed by it.
It's again, that feels very much a product of its time, where they want you to, like, feel like this is a hard fight. Like, they want you to feel like you're getting your money's worth out of this fight by making you fall off and do it and get better. And
Ganon's so hard. It's like, no, he's not hard. It's just poorly designed.
Because, like, like you said, the bats don't freeze.
The bats don't freeze with you.
When you freeze, for whatever reason.
Yeah, so, like, they'll do that spinning fire attack, and you'll be frozen in the ground, which you have no way to avoid.
Yeah.
You'll always be frozen, and if you just happen to get frozen at the wrong part, you just automatically get hit.
And they do, like, 4 or 5 hearts of damage or something crazy.
Everything Ganon does tons of damage.
Yeah. And so that's, like, I guess that's your incentive to get bottles and get hearts throughout the game. Like, that's your... Because if you have them all, it's inconsequential because you have 4 fairies or 1 or 3 fairies. Like, you're probably going to make it. You'll brute force your way through pretty easily.
Well, my issue was I thought I went into that fight very, like, well armed and prepared, and, like, I had all the bottles in the right, like, thing. And you watch me, like, second I got to a certain amount of health, like, pause, do all the things I need to do, bam, bam, like, avoid most of his attacks that weren't freezing me in place. Like, I had it down. Yeah. And then every once in a while I just get hit off.
The RNG would knock you off, basically.
Yeah, that's my only issue with the Ganon fight. Like, it's actually a really cool fight, and I actually felt like, oh, I'm learning his moveset. Like, the majority of the bosses, you don't learn their moveset. Like, you just hit them, and then they die, and then you hope that they don't hit you as many times.
Because, like, this time, like, when I fought the wizard Agnum, it felt much easier for some reason because he didn't do his lightning bolt attack nearly as often as I remember him doing it. Like, I remember that thing.
He does it in the beginning a lot.
He does it in the beginning, but I remember the second fight having it a lot more. But I guess maybe I'm just misremembering.
Oh, about those dungeon mechanics, that fucking curtain.
Oh yeah,
I don't like that curtain. I got to that part where after you do the first 3 dungeons and then you go fight the wizard and you get taken to the dark world. Yeah. In the last dungeon, you get the magic mirror. And I was like, oh, what a cool item! Like. On a lot of different levels, and we're not going to talk about how the magic mirror works, but it's cool. Or maybe we will. I have no idea. But so you get up to this part, and he's like, I'm going to lock you in this room. Go fuck yourself. And he leaves. Yeah. And I'm like, fuck you. I have a magic mirror. You didn't realize that. Which lets me, and it tells you this on the item description, go back to the beginning of any dungeon. Yeah. And it's like, oh, there's no exit in here. I solved your fucking problem immediately. Yeah. And I got out to the back, and I was like, oh, okay. But now what do I do? Because I thought he was going to be here or something.
He tricked you.
Yeah, he tricked me into using an item. Like, I had no idea what the fuck to do. I had never slashed any curtains in the entire game.
I think that could have been solved in the opening of the game.
Yeah, well, anytime you would just force me to slash a curtain, then I have no excuse at that point. Yeah. But they never forced me to.
I think if Zelda led you into the room and said, hey, we need to go through this curtain.
Oh, yeah. Or just any... Or
not that particular room, but like the room before, hey, here's a curtain, that's how we're going to escape is through this secret tunnel through this curtain. Yes. I think that would have rectified that over the move this thing that you'll never do again.
Yeah, you don't really move a whole lot of stuff to like get behind stuff.
Not very often, no. Maybe twice in the whole game.
And it's like, I could have inferred that by the fact that I have to move blocks all the time. So a couple secrets behind bigger things that I have to move isn't a problem. But like, never is there a fucking curtain that I am required to go through.
That's one of the things I thought about on this playthrough. Is like that could have been mechanically done better. I guess this game has a couple weird concepts in it where it has mechanics that just aren't explained. Yeah, in a organic way or at all. I showed you at the end when you need fairies in that last temple, the Ganon's castle or whatever it's called, Ganon's tower. There's this part where you have to line up with these blocks, and you literally have to be standing in the black. Yeah. You have to stand in the black to run at them to bounce backwards.
It at times feels like a ROM hack. Yes. Like, that's such a ROM hacky kind of thing to do. Like, you're off the fucking grid at that point. Like, you're standing in the darkness, and you have to run it. Like, it feels so backwards and weird. I mean, I really don't hate the game. I know it sounds like I do because I'm shitting on it so much, but, like, there's just a couple things that annoy me, and they're almost definitely because I'm willing to bet that I'm being a huge hypocrite now, because the second we play Dark Souls or something like that, I'm going to go, oh, it's great how you have to go all the way back to the forest to get this fucking ring so that you can go into the abyss. Like, I know I'm going to say it.
Yeah.
There's nothing that's going to be able to stop me from saying it, even though I'm shitting on doing the exact same thing right now.
Like, I think that's what I liked about this over the 3D Zeldas, is there's a lot less downtime to backtracking versus, like, okay, doing Ocarina of Time and doing, like, the big sword quest, and you have to just keep going back and forth across Hyrule Field. It takes so long.
Oh, but that's optional.
I understand, but I'm just saying as an example.
I would much rather do an optional thing that I can go, oh, all right, never mind, I'm bored by this, and just go do something else than having to trek through the fucking overworld to find a magic bottle. Like,
yeah, but I feel like if you are following the game, a lot of stuff is mirrored in the other worlds. So, like, if you've done something in one world, in the light world, when you go to the dark world, there's likely something else to be there. An example would be to get the book, you go to the library. Mm-hmm. So in the dark world, you go there, and there's a frogman, and he goes, hey, I'm one of the blacksmiths that's been missing. So if you visit the blacksmith while you were exploring early, you go, oh, yeah, there's a missing brother. Hey, you found him. You use the magic mirror. You take him to the light world. Makes sense, I think. The problem, though, is...
It's not in that library, just so you know.
That's essentially where that building is, though. Like, it's a little off. Things are a little bit off, of course, but...
He's also outside and surrounded by rocks. Oh, that's another big thing. The rocks are poorly indicated, but whatever.
What do you mean?
Like...
Which are heavy and which aren't? Or the fact that there are heavy ones and not heavy ones?
Well, there's 3 tiers of heaviness, because there's 2 different power bracelets and your standard strength. Your standard strength can lift pots and a couple other things. And, like, some skulls? I don't know.
Well, there's light skulls and dark skulls.
Right, but the light skulls you can pick up with the L1.
Yeah.
That's from the Game Boy Color ones. I don't know what they're called, but whatever. I probably the L1, L2. Whatever. Doesn't matter. L1 bracelets, you can pick up the light skulls. You can also pick up the light, huge fucking things.
Yeah, but not the dark ones.
But not the dark, huge fucking things.
Well, like, those ones are made out of some other material.
But they could have... I don't know. It feels really weird to be like... I didn't even realize I could pick up the big ones forever, because I just assumed, like... Oh, yeah, when I get the bigger power bracelets, I'll be able to pick those up.
Well, it's also kind of weird, too, is there's those stacked blocks. Mm-hmm. The 5 blocks stacked. Like,
you have to run into them.
You can't pick them up.
Yeah.
So you don't really think about them, and then you get the power bracelet, and you still can't pick them up.
Yeah, very confusing.
So you have to run into them. Yeah. But, I mean, that doesn't bother me.
It's like they already have the light and the dark. Just do... Light is level 1, and dark is level 2, which is what they did, but the problem is that the 2 different sizes confuses the matter even more. Like, you might as well just do... Small is level 1, and then just do light and dark. It doesn't matter. Just do it, like, so it looks pretty. And then big ones is level 2. And again, you just do it to match whatever.
Yeah.
It's just weird.
I think, though, like, aesthetically, though, having a big level 2 block somewhere would just be ugly.
Well, you can make a different single block one that's not a different color that just looks heavy. Like, it has something else on top of it so that it matches whatever they're doing.
I think they fixed that in Ocarina.
Well,
like the giant ones, and
yeah.
Like they're huge.
Yeah, exactly. Like
impossibly huge.
You know what you can and can't
Yeah.
pick up in that game.
Well, I wouldn't even think I could pick up something that big, though.
That's what's so great about it.
Anyway.
Well, no, they have an indication. Like, you know what all the pick-upable blocks are.
One of the things I like about the 2D Zeldas is that they are 2D. No, I don't know what it is about the 2D Zeldas, but I feel very captivated by them versus the 3D ones. Whenever I play the 3D ones, there's just this point I normally get in where it's like, I don't really want to play any more of it. And it's happened to almost every single 3D one. Even like on replays of games, like Ocarina of Time, it's like, I just, somewhere along the way I go, I don't really want to play anymore. And like Majora's Mask, I've never been able to beat because I get bored. Like Ice Temple, I got bored. And then the last time I played, I got to the last temple, whatever it's called, Stone Temple.
Temple Pilots.
Twilight Princess is just a slog to get through, and like the bug catching crap, like all the extra stuff is boring. Like everything's very tedious. Wind Waker, when I played it on GameCube, I barely beat. Mostly, just the water segments are super slow. Skyward Sword I never beat, and probably never will, just because I don't care. The sword mechanics never worked for me. Some people say it works great, and then for me they just didn't work. I don't know what was going on with that. But every 2D Zelda, aside from Oracle of Seasons and Ages, and the only reason I didn't play them is because I couldn't afford them as a kid. I couldn't afford to buy 2 games, so I just never played them. It was like, get that or Pokemon. I went with Pokemon, so it's what it came down to. But like Link's Awakening, Link to the Past, Link Between Worlds, the Ocean one, Spirit Blood. I'm trying to think. There's Minish Cap, and is there another one? I've pretty much beaten all those. And I've
Four Swords.
Yeah, but that one I don't think I ever played either because I didn't have friends. And I really enjoyed all those games. Like they were games I never really felt bored with them for whatever reason. But like anytime I played a 3D one, it was just like at some point I just get either anxious or like it's just like I don't want to do this. I don't care to finish it. Like I think it's like I don't know what it is, honestly, what it is about the 3D games that just don't appeal to me. The same way the 2D ones. Yeah, I know. That's why I brought it up.
It's like almost exactly the opposite. Like the 2D ones, like half of them I'm just like, I mean, I beat Oracle of Seasons. I've beaten Oracle of Ages if I remember right. But like I tried to replay both of those and it's just like halfway through I was like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like I don't need any more of this. Like but even Twilight Princess, which I even like almost directly after I was like, man, there are parts of that game that are fucking bad or just boring or just like, you know, and yet I still came home every single day after school, after preschool when it came out.
Yeah.
And I wanted to play more. I wanted to find out more about the world. I wanted to find out more stuff. I wanted to look at what new stuff I was going to get and like it was weird. It's weird for me with 3D Zelda games. I think maybe my biggest issue with 2D Zelda games is just that there is a lack of like world building, I think, a little tiny bit. Like the dungeons don't feel unique. They're just dungeons kind of thing. You know? Some of them feel unique. Like the desert one feels like a desert dungeon.
Yeah.
Like, well, the main room does. After that it kind of loses its... But A Link Between Worlds really fixes that.
Yes.
Like the desert dungeon has an entire desert rod where you lift sand and it's the whole mechanic of the game. Like I think A Link Between Worlds, like, for me, we're going to get into A Link Between Worlds now, I guess. It was the first 2D Zelda game that I played like a 3D Zelda game. Like, every single dungeon, I was like, I just want to go to the next one. Like, I just want to see what the next thing is. Like, the puzzles are a little bit weak.
Yeah.
But they're puzzles. Like, they're legitimate puzzles. Like, they never feel like just push all the blocks until one happens to move.
Yeah. I think, like, I feel like the Link Between Worlds is what we need for the Metroid series.
Yes.
Because the Metroid games, the 3D ones, are like the Zelda games to me. At some point, I just go, I don't care.
Yeah.
They're boring, and I don't want to do this anymore. Versus the 2D Metroids, like I can play through all of them. Like I enjoy all of them.
I like Prime a lot. I like Prime and Prime 2, and I've never played Prime 3. I assume I'd like it.
I have the trilogy, but I've never been able to get into them like I've wanted to. I want to, but at some point, like early on in those games, they go, yeah, I don't care. And Other M is trash.
Yes, but it really
had the elements I was looking for, but then it's just destroyed by story that makes absolutely no sense. And it's like, But thankfully, like A Link Between Worlds is what I wanted in a new Zelda game. Like, oh, perfect. Like I don't want these 3D games that don't give me what I want. Like the stylization that the 2Ds have really well. Like something about that 2D is really attractive to me. The 3Ds just kind of, they in my mind get bogged down. Like they don't feel as tight in my mind. There's a lot of empty space in those worlds and stuff. Like Majora's Mask. Majora's Mask I feel is a very tight world because it's very small.
Yeah, it's perfect.
And that feels like the translation of a 2D Zelda to 3D versus Ocarina of Time that has this way too big a map, like with nothing in it. There's areas of the overworld with absolutely nothing in it.
I mean, there are basically nothing. Like, there's entire areas of nothingness in A Link to the Past.
But they're quick. You don't trek out there and go, shit, there's nothing here, and then trek all the way back.
Trek out in Ocarina of Time.
Like
it's not to just another corner of the map that has stuff in it.
I don't know. I
guess there are a bunch of secrets out in the overworld. I mean, I'm not saying Hyrule Field is great or anything, but it's not that bad.
I just feel like it's, in my mind, I haven't played in a really long time as well. So
yeah, I think you're vastly overestimating how big Hyrule Field is. It's really small.
Yeah.
And then the second you go off onto any of the places that are connected to Hyrule Field, they're all loaded with shit.
Yeah.
They're just concentrated to those areas as opposed to a little bit of stuff everywhere. Yeah. I don't know. But yeah, I agree. A Link Between Worlds style Metroid game is really what Nintendo should have done.
Like another 2D one, like
Yeah.
Zero Mission Fusion. Give us another one on 3DS.
Well,
even Wii U would be great now
The thing is,
with
they
the
need
dual screens.
No, they don't want to do that. The issue is Metroid doesn't sell to anybody.
Yeah.
Metroid doesn't sell. Kirby does. Kirby actually makes money. Metroid doesn't make money. Doesn't matter how many of you fucking people say that there's, oh, listen to the fans, like they are. They don't buy Metroid
Well, I think the
games.
problem is the Metroid games have been bad since...
Nobody bought Super Metroid.
I can't help that no one bought that, but to make them 3D.
And then nobody bought Metroid 1, Super Metroid, Zero Mission, Fusion, or Prime. Any of the Primes. The Prime ones actually are the most sold ones.
Yeah.
So, like, what are they supposed to do? Go back to 2D Zelda like everybody says? And then they're just like, but nobody buys it. Why would we do this? And they're not cheap to make. Like, the Kirby games make more than the Metroid games make and take a fraction of the time.
And I feel like
And they're better.
they're boring.
Because they're Kirby games, and Kirby games are perfect in every single way. They're fun.
If you're a baby, yeah.
No, they're fun. They're really fun games. I mean, I don't like easy games. And I don't even find Kirby that easy. If you take the time and go, I'm going to get all the stuff in this game, there's a lot of that game where it's like, do not get hit. You cannot get hit or you will fuck up. You will not be able to get everything in this level.
I
It's
feel
like a self-imposed challenge. It's like anybody can play a Kirby game. That's kind of why I like them. They're relaxing, sort of.
I don't care for them.
I know.
I'd rather play a Mario game.
I mean, they're like, that's like apples to oranges. Like, they're two totally different experiences in my head.
They feel very similar, and one is really boring to me.
Well,
And that's my opinion.
yeah, I can't help your bad taste. In beautiful pink goodness. But I think it would have been nice, a low-budget 3DS 2D Metroid game. Like, don't go overboard. Just give the couple loud people what they want.
Like I should look at the sales figures for Link Between Worlds as opposed to the other Zelda games.
I think it sold pretty well.
That's what I'm thinking, and I think it takes a good game. I think if they made a good Metroid,
they did. They made 3 of them that are really, really critically acclaimed.
Yeah, but
The Prime series is beloved for a reason. Like, they're really good games, and they feel like Metroid games just in 3D. I know you don't agree with that, but like, okay, what everybody tells me is Metroid is what I assume. I've played way more Castlevania games than I've played any Metroid games. I've never beaten any 2D Metroid games. But what everybody tells me is that they're like Castlevania games. I mean, they're Metroidvania for a reason. They're like those Castlevania games, and they're all about exploration and atmosphere.
Yeah.
Which is what the Prime games are. Exploration, atmosphere, and you can kind of unlock shit in weird ways. Conclusions.
I'm just not as big into 3D games like that.
That's not the conclusion.
No, I'm not concluding. I was just going back real quick to finish that thought. Like, I just think 2D games like that didn't translate well. I just like Castlevania didn't translate well into 3D. Like, I think you can make a 3D game and that's fine. I just don't feel like
that's not
as smooth a transition.
Castlevania can translate into 3D because it has. It made a really, really great 3D game. Dark Souls. Like, what is that other than just Castlevania in 3D?
You don't use hearts for currency in that. You use souls. It's different game.
Like, it's basically just Castlevania. Like, clearly Castlevania could have been a good 3D game. It's just that it wasn't.
That's because Konami.
Yeah.
The good thing we'll never have another one.
Yeah.
That series is dead now.
There were so many good ones. Order of Ecclesia is so fucking good.
Symphony of Night, super good.
Symphony of Night's also good. They're all good.
No.
All those 2D ones are none of them are bad. None of them are even mediocre. They're all good to really great.
Yeah. I just think 4 and Symphony of the Night are my favorite ones.
4's fucking trash, but that's okay. We're going to play it, and then I'm going to beat it for the first time and go, yeah, it was boring.
Yeah.
It'll be great.
Anything else we need to talk about?
No.
I'm trying to think if there's anything else I had to say. And
I really like A Link to the Past. I just like my baby 3D Zelda games more because I'm a big baby.
I really love Link to the Past, and as much as I talk shit on other games in the series, I can't say it's my favorite. Like, it's like I can go back to and play it over and over. Like, I haven't gone back and replayed Link Between Worlds, like I have this. Like I've beaten this so many times over the years, but it's nice to finally get a Zelda game that feels fresh and takes everything I liked about this game and just did it a little bit better.
This is almost a review for Link Between Worlds.
Well,
might as well just play that too.
Yeah, maybe
a little doubleheader.
But I mean, we both beaten it, so
yeah.
But like, I don't know. I really like. It's tough. Like, I think the problem with Link Between Worlds is it plays with my nostalgia strings a lot, from musical cues and the world. Just if it hadn't had the same world, I don't think I would have even cared about that game as much as I do. There's just something about this game, like, so rooted in my childhood, being one of the first games I ever played, that it's one of my favorite. Like, it's in my top 10 games of all time, most likely. A list that I will never divulge because it's always going to have more than 10 games in it. Anything else?
No.
Okay.
I think it's pretty obvious how I feel about it.
Yeah. You hate it.
I don't hate it. It's not as good as I was led on to believe.
Yeah.
I think everybody tells me it's amazing and it's good.
Compared to, like, what you heard about Chrono Trigger.
Chrono Trigger's way better.
Okay.
Way better. Chrono Trigger is good, whether or not it's in the past. Like, if I'm going to look at an entire series of games in order, that's the only time you can really remove them and say, hey, look at it in context. I'm looking at it in context of all the games that I play.
Yeah.
Like, there are other action RPG-ish games that I can go back and play from that same era that are also fun that I can play with. But it doesn't matter. Like, if I can, I'm comparing it to games now, games then, games whenever. So, I mean, if I'm going to look at A Link to the Past in context, then there's a couple of those things that I said that I still think hold true. But for the most part, it's fucking insanity. Like, it's amazing. Mm-hmm. But I'm not. I'm looking at it like I am now.
Yeah.
It's just like, yeah, it's good. Versus Chrono Trigger, which, yeah, it's missing some stuff that I'd prefer in my RPGs. It's missing a little bit of depth, I would say. But it's really functional. It feels almost brand new.
Yeah.
Like, it feels like it could have come out today. And I would have been like, yeah, pretty good.
Yeah.
I really like Chrono Trigger. And I think it's a really important game. And I think A Link to the Past is important. Mm-hmm. But I don't know. I just don't think it's nearly as good as the hype. I mean, people still say it's their, like, I understand people saying it's their favorite Zelda game. That's totally different. Like, Majora's Mask is my favorite Zelda, and I think Ocarina of Time's better.
Yeah.
Well, it's debatable. But whatever. But, like, people were saying A Link to the Past is the best one. Mm-hmm. And I cannot see that. I cannot see A Link to the Past being the best one. I think Oracle of Seasons surpasses it. It's way tighter. I find Link's Awakening a little bit boring, but I think even that, is tighter. Like, it just feels a little loose in places. Like, I don't understand how you can look at A Link to the Past and A Link Between Worlds and go, yeah, A Link to the Past is a better game than A Link Between Worlds. Like,
yeah,
it just doesn't feel that way to me.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
Yeah, I wish A Link Between Worlds was harder. I wish it was as hard as A Link to the Past. But I feel like A Link to the Past sometimes is hard, not because it's a skill level thing, but because it's just obtuse. Yeah. Or not obtuse, but, like, its mechanics just don't work with the difficulty.
It is one of the things I really like about it is difficult.
I like that a lot.
Even, like, now, like, after replaying it, it's like, wow, holy crap, there are hard parts here.
Yeah.
That you never really get in the 3D ones. I don't think they get that hard sometimes.
No, yeah. Well, Majora's Mask gets hard sometimes, but it's mostly just, like, puzzle thinking. Like, a lot of the Zelda games, a lot of the 3D Zelda games, it's just
that
like,
game's puzzles are a bit harder because you have to think on 3 days, and
it's
like got these very, like, you have to really, like, you have to go.
They assumed you had played Ocarina.
Yeah.
So they assumed you had beaten it. They were like, all right, you've got 8 dungeons down. We'll start at already difficult, and we'll go from there.
Yeah, makes sense.
With Stone Temple being the pinnacle.
Yeah, I haven't beaten it.
I know. I don't know.
Probably never will.
Especially on 3DS, where it's even better.
It's boring, but whatever. Let's end this. Let's wrap this up before we get into a whole discussion again.
All right. Next week, we're playing Broforce, I think. Another co-op.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I haven't co-oped in a while.
It'll be our second co-op after Left 4 Dead 2.
Yeah. I'm excited to play Broforce.
Yeah, which we're probably going to do right now.
Right now. We're going to end this and play it. Good night, everybody.